¿Qué pasa, campeones? And welcome to the Churros y Tácticas Podcast. It is March the 30th, and we're recording this on a Tuesday because yesterday neither Kiyan nor I could get to our mics at a decent time, which coincided with our schedule. So Tuesday Churros it is, but you know that extra day in the fryer means they're coming out extra crispy. And folks, we got a gang of questions for you guys. Going over a Patreon mailbag today, and let me tell you, the questions are very interesting, very diverse, and as always, very entertaining. So you're going to get your churros worth of Liga Spanish football-related content here. And going through it today, of course, as every Churros y Tácticas episode, is my man Kiyan Sobhani. Kiyan, what's going on this Churros Tácticas Tuesday?
Well, I'm just devastated because we have to answer all these really fun questions instead of talking about Spain's possession. So I'm so heartbroken. But, you know, we do what we got to do. We put ourselves to the fire because we love our patrons and our listeners as a whole. So I'm happy to just get to the questions. I know we kind of got limited time, and it's a miracle we actually were able to coincide today. So,
no doubt.
Ironically, we have a question about Spain right off the bat. So our patron Tapiwa Musa says, will we ever see a Spain that's not frustrating anytime soon? In the sense that ever since the 2014 World Cup, they seem to always have several dull, heavy possession-based games with little to no potent threat going forward, regardless of personnel. And as we saw in the 2018 World Cup, whenever they come up against a deep block that takes their chances, like what happened with Russia, they often end up with pie on their faces.
Do you want to take this, Kiyan? I've got my, thoughts on this question. A great question from Taps. But you want to jump on this one first?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think... So I don't think we've seen the true Spain yet, the one that Lucho has envisioned for the Euros. But I also think that that's not a good excuse. I think it's actually a little bit of a problem that we haven't seen that version yet, because that's going to creep up on us. Did you know that tomorrow, is it tomorrow that's April? April 1st is tomorrow? Am I getting that right? No, It's April 1st is on Thursday. Don't agree with me. It's on Thursday. You can't just accept my opinions blindly. You got to fact check me. It's not tomorrow, Diego. It's on Thursday. But the point is that this week is April, and the Euros start in June, and we have yet to see the real Spain yet. It's a bunch of different lineups every single game. There's no continuity. There's no rhythm. There's nothing that sustains from one game to another. It wasn't that long ago that you and I were talking about, I don't know which game it was, but it was one of those fun games where Adama Traore was really fun to watch on the right wing, and there were all these cool young new pieces, and there still is. I mean, there's, Pedri made his debut over the international break, and he looked really good. And Dani Olmo obviously scored a great game winner. So there are still those young faces there, and all that. I just don't think we've seen the true starting 11 yet. There's just so much variance, and I've said that before. And I think it becomes a problem that we haven't seen it yet, because you're going into Euros kind of like trying to figure this out from scratch. It kind of reminds me of the Clippers problem last season, where they never had their full team available. They just were like, okay, it's okay because we'll have it ready for the playoffs. But we never saw them get it together because they never were able to form that cohesiveness in the regular season. That worries me a little bit, because I think this squad on paper is one of the deepest in Europe, if not the deepest. Maybe isn't loaded with superstar power like a France or a Portugal, but it's pretty loaded, and I think it can compete. I don't think it's the favorite, but it should be on paper a quarterfinalist at the very least, and possibly more. So it worries me. And the heavy possession stuff, I think it's going to vary game to game. I think the problem with 2014 World Cup was that it was so stale and the players are so old. And then that kind of carried over to 2018. A lot of those old faces still remain in the team. And I think you just needed a rejuvenation at that point, which is why Lucho was so important. But we can't forget that Lopetegui had this team playing really fun football before the World Cup. And after, Lucho has had some really fun games. I just think that Lucho has put so much emphasis on tryouts and giving new names playing time that I think it's going to be really hard to form that cohesiveness whether you face a low block or not. And I think that's what I'd be most concerned about, because I don't think that if you have your cohesiveness, this talent, you can figure out the ways to break a low block. All these players are cerebral. They're direct. Their movement off the ball is good. All that stuff is good. And you have players in form. I just think that you need some cohesiveness, Diego.
See, the thing is, you hit the nail on the head with two of your points, and that's, the amount of players that he's used as well as the rotations. And I was going over some stats in preparation for this question, and Luis Enrique so far he's coached 19 games with the Spanish national side in which he's used 57 different players.
Wow.
And he's made 21 other players have had their debuts under Luis Enrique. Now, the other point that I wanted to address along with this is Luis Enrique actually himself, quite a while ago when he took over the job as manager, actually said, this is textually here that I'm paraphrasing and translating this, that the idea of a fixed 11 doesn't fit in his head. So with this already, he insinuated very clearly that his idea was to use many players, figure out really where to take this revolution, because that's really what we're seeing under Luis Enrique, right? I mean, obviously Fernando Hierro during the what was it, the World Cup, had to improvise. I mean, he had to take over a selection, a national side that was left in tatters and in shock with the sudden departure and the firing rather of Julen Lopetegui. And I think ever since then, we already saw at the end of the era of the Del Bosque era that this side, it needed a change. It needed to not so much of a change in tactics or playing style, but I think a change in mindset and players competing for the positions as well. Spain is always a country that produces so much talent, and I think right now, with those words of Luis Enrique resonating in the back of our heads, where he clearly stated his intent to use not just new play or different players, but allow a lot of the fresh new young talent to get their debuts as well, and figure out a fixed 11, or at least that in the short run, or potentially even in the long run. Obviously, but when the big tournament rolls around, you want to think that a fixed 11 will be sort of in his head, right? I mean, which 11 players he wants to come out and face the opposition with, and that he has full trust in. But I think I think what we're seeing is clearly that we're still in this sort of testing phase, where sometimes we see Spain come out that I think plays quite fun and this direct, quick passing football, vertical football style of football that we're used to seeing from Luis Enrique from his time that he was coaching Barça, was coaching Celta, but he hasn't, I guess, quite figured or hasn't been self-convinced rather of exactly what players he wants to use as his base, let's say, in the Spanish national side. And we've had our guesses, for example, his pair of central defenders, the wing backs, the midfield, but strikers. We've seen a lot of changes, and we've had our guesses with which we think are more fixed and more likely to repeat in the starting 11 as opposed to others. But right now it's very similar to Luis Aragonés, right? Kiyan, I think we discussed this as well once on the pod that Luis Aragonés was very famous for, rotating players around, for having players debut as well under him, and I guess to get back to the original question from Taps is I'm trying to pull it up now. What I think it was: will we see or will we stop being frustrated? Right.
Right.
Here it is. Will we ever see a Spain that is not frustrating anytime soon? How do you answer that? What is with what do you measure that, Taps? Are you getting frustrated by the rotations, the lack of identity, the lack of convincing play? I guess my answer to that question is strap yourself in, because I don't think he's quite figured it out himself yet. How and who he wants to have playing in his team. So I think this will be continue on a little bit longer, and of course we've got the Euros right around the corner. So I mean, at some point, the rotations either have to stop or they continue, and we'll see what results we get. But yeah, I guess right now it's a little bit of a question mark, and as to what Spain will we get, and what we expect from this Spain moving forward.
Well, I mean, those stats are staggering, and I think that's impressive, and I actually give Luis Enrique a lot of credit for giving all those debuts and having all those. I actually believe like the ideology of, I don't have fixed starting 11 can be beneficial, especially when you're going through a transition phase, when you're trying to find something new. You're kind of reinventing the wheel, and that's what he was asked to do, to start from scratch and start fresh.
Right.
Incorporate a lot of young players, and that takes time to figure out, and I totally understand that. I think what he'll have to settle on something, because to me, when he says something like that, that to me means, it just means that no player is above the nation, quote unquote, so to speak, and that no one is indispensable. And if you're not good there, you're not going to start. It won't depend on your name. But eventually, I think you have to land on something, because like even with Aragonés, but in the Euro 2008, it was a lock. Like everyone, it was your midfield was Senna, Iniesta, Xavi, and Silva. Those four were always in the team, and usually it was Torres who was starting, and then Villa would come in and out. Xabi Alonso and Cesc would come in and out. But that was your starting quartet: Iniesta, Xavi, Silva, and Senna. And then the backline picked itself too, with Ramos, Puyol, Marchena, Capdevila. So he had a starting 11, which gave them a lot of continuity and ability to establish rhythm. I just think like you have to figure that out at some point. That's something he'll have to figure out.
9. He has not, just to finish this one, last little stat for those interested. He hasn't repeated an 11 9 of the 11 times of the last 11 times. Excuse me, of the last 11 games. Yeah.
All right. So Harsh Varela says, "Hey Kiyan and Diego, I hope you guys are both doing great. So here's my question: there is a real possibility that both Madrid and Barca will change managers in the summer. They both have various reasons for that. And by looking at potential alternatives, I guess we could see Raul and Xavi managing their clubs. Let's say if it happens, then one thing is for sure, that the Clasico would be much more exciting. What do you guys think will change or improve in the Clasico? I want to see those days of Pep versus Mourinho."
Many argue that the days of Pep and Mourinho were actually not, the glory days, the golden age of Clásicos, but actually something to be frowned upon and should never be repeated again.
Glory days, maybe not glory days. Maybe it was the most heated days, maybe most hostile.
Yeah,
it was a war. Yeah.
It was.
Although it was Barca's glory days, you could argue.
Yeah, right. I mean, but I think if we look at this as a whole, as a Clásico, as its like unique sort of individual sort of unit, I guess its own little world, for it to go back to, I mean, you and I, we often talk about, we like rivalries and we don't like the buddy and the hand claps and all the good nature, let's say, that take place necessarily before or after a game. We want to see things get chippy and feisty and at least to be taken serious and for the level of competition, the competitive spirit to really be released on the biggest stage and for me, what is the biggest club football match in the world, and I don't think there should necessarily be I never know if I'm using this saying correct, like love lost between the two teams. That's like there isn't any love lost. Am I using that right? That's a bad thing, right? Like
I don't know. I have to.
It means they don't
half the
like
times I say an expression, I don't even know if I'm using it correctly. So I'm not really the one to ask.
I'm sorry.
I think it means.
Well, good. You're with me on that one.
I think It just means that it's like two entities who just don't like each other. Love lost.
Right.
No love
Okay.
lost.
Exactly. Yes, yes. And well, I mean, I do prefer more, of an, football matches of a nature where there isn't any love lost between the two teams. Put it that way. So, what do we need to get back to it? Well, Raul and Xavi. I don't know. Is that what's going to bring back the feistiness in Clásicos, Kiyan? You think?
I mean, just based on pure. The Raul is like I think in this context, Xavi would probably instigate things like Mourinho more than Raul would. So it might be flipped here in terms of who would be the instigator and who would cause attention and who would react to it. Although Raul is quite feisty as a coach, so I don't know. But there is potential to have it more interesting. I always feel like the more like not necessarily homegrown, but certainly players who are there around Clasico a lot would add to it a lot. So, the reason Ramos and Puyol made Clasico so special is because Ramos and Puyol were both around the Clasico for a long time. So it's familiarity. You get to see those opponents often, and you see them in the same team, in the same game as often as Ramos and Puyol. It becomes really interesting.
Yeah.
PK too. And
they got to know the meaning behind the Clasico.
Right.
For sure.
And so over time, Roberto Carlos develops that. And Jordi Alba develops that. You know what I mean? So Raul and Xavi certainly would understand the weight of the Clásico and therefore would make it interesting. Possibly, I don't know. It's hard to predict these things. We can talk about Xavi too. Like, what do you think is the timeline with him? Because Koeman's doing really well right now. I feel like if Barca continue like this, and by the end of the season, it would be really harsh to do away with Koeman.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends over the next couple of upcoming matches and weeks. Obviously the two trophies that are still up for grabs are those won, and if not, how were they lost? In what manner are they lost? If everything goes tits up and there's no cup trophy and no Liga trophy, and we lose the Clásico and the Barça Atleti in awful manner, then there's still a chance, of course, I think, for Koeman to be fired. If not, if we say go out with our heads held high, aka the knockout match against PSG, then I think and we win the cup, or again we lose valiantly, let's say, then I think there might still be a good chance for Koeman to stay on. And with regards to the Clásico, I think that also things like that would make the Clásico more spicy as well. Let's say, it's these kind of the end of the seasons, right? Different chapters or upcoming chapters for Clásico matches as well. There's still one that has to be played now. There's a Liga up for grabs or to play for. So these are the games that could reignite, let's say, that warrior spirit, that battling spirit, the rivalry, the one of the oldest and for me the best rivalry in club football in the world, and more homegrown players. I'm kind of digressing or reverting back to what will make a Clásico great again. But I guess we have a chance. We're at the cusp of potentially another chapter in the history of Clásicos if La Liga is still up for grabs and Madrid and Barça are fighting for it.
I just think with Xavi too, I mean, Raul kind of fits the bill in this too. Xavi will always be there as an option. You know what I mean? I feel like there shouldn't be a rush. If you're Barcelona anyway, I think it's a high risk to sack Koeman because I feel like he's brewing something here. I could be wrong, but it feels like he's brewing something.
Even if it all goes tits up, Kiyan, and he loses the way I said, and just badly.
Yeah. No, and that no, not in that scenario. But I'm just saying, if he continues like this, it's promising.
Yeah.
Right. And Xavi will always be there. So like, if he's doing well, I say you ride with him, and then Xavi is just a phone call away. I could be wrong, but it's kind of like Xavi is like
no, for sure.
Xavi's like the little Xavi's like your mom in this situation. She'll always be a phone call away. I don't know if that analogy actually makes sense.
And he's young.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay.
And and you're right, and he's still very young. I mean, how realistic and how real is the option of Raul at this point in time?
I don't think so. Like, let's say in the hypothetical that Zidane is not the coach this summer, which I still think is like the way Harsh words it here, where he says it looks like it will be Raul and Xavi managing their clubs this summer. The real possibility, I think, even that is a stretch. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Zidane will not be the manager next season. But in the event that Zidane does leave, when he leaves, I don't think Raul will be plan A. I think he'll be, like, let's say, I think they'll go for Nagelsmann. They'll go for whoever is available at that time. I don't know who that name is right now because it could be anyone in the summertime. I think if they don't get their guy, then Raul is plan B. Because usually the Castilla guy isn't plan A. It's like it's the one who gets called up if you can't get anyone else. That's usually what happens. So, I mean, that's how Zidane got in too. That's how Solari got in. So,
you're right.
Interesting question coming up. Brendan Power says, "Who is the bigger Barca legend, Lionel Messi or Johan Cruyff? And who is the bigger Real Madrid legend, Ronaldo or Zidane?" Let's start with Barca.
This one for me it's almost impossible. It's almost, I mean, they're intertwined. I think, Cruyff set up the system that allowed Messi to get the best out of Messi to flourish and excel to, being the best ever football player that ever lived. And without that, I don't know if Messi would have achieved such greatness. So I cannot. Obviously, Messi is the one that has smashed and set all the records and set the bar incredibly high for anybody, any future legend from the club to, that is up and coming until that'll come out of the youth ranks. But the bigger legend, for me, this one is impossible. I would love to see this on a poll on social media somewhere, or because I would be very interested to see the results. I would imagine that Messi takes it, and I would hope it would be by a small margin, because I don't think you can undermine, what Cruyff has meant and has done for this club, the football in general, but for this club, of course, in particular.
It's a really interesting one because you start comparing figures and players in this sense. So it's like, some of it's a little bit, it's very difficult to answer because you're comparing in some way apples to oranges. Like, you can bring in, like, for example, from Real Madrid's perspective, Santiago Bernabeu yesterday, the man, is one of the bigger legends in the club history, but he's not a player. So once you start comparing him to players, it's like, it's hard to really get into that discussion. But Messi is a better player than Cruyff, and Ronaldo was a better player than Zidane. So you're comparing figures and players. And I think
we're talking Nazario or Cristiano.
I'm sure he means
talking OG.
I'm sure he means Cristiano, because Ronaldo Nazario doesn't even stand close to Zidane in terms of Real Madrid legacy. So I'm sure it's Cristiano.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So what was your answer? Do you have to choose one? Gun to your head.
No. What? Nah. Man. Gotta go Messi.
Yeah, it's Messi. It has to be. Because if Cruyff doesn't exist, Messi's still going to be born, and Messi's still going to probably be what he was.
I don't know if he reached that heights, though. That's my doubt. We could have seen Messi Argentina version.
Well, now, interesting. I never thought about it that way. Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting point. So, in my mind, it's like you're starting to have a discussion. Like, if Messi grows up in Manchester United and
right.
Michael Jordan gets drafted by the Blazers, are they still exactly. Jordan and Messi?
If Michael never meets Phil, yeah.
I still think Messi, it's pretty
you
clear.
Put the product above the system.
Yeah, I always do. I kind of always do, because the product is what... Like, I always believe that a transcendent player outdoes your system. Like, you can put the best system in place, to fight against a certain player, or you can put the best system in place and try to do it without that transcendent player. You're just not going to get the same kind of results. That's why superstars are probably the most important and valuable commodity in football, because superstars will always be the trump card over tactics or great managers. So that's just the way it is. It's just they're more important. And so biggest Real Madrid legend,
I hear that.
Cristiano Ronaldo or Zidane? I think it's Ronaldo. I think it has to be.
Yeah.
All right.
As a player, it's not even close. Despite obviously Zizou scoring the best goal ever in the Champions League and Real Madrid's history. But you look at everything they've accomplished, both. Well, I mean, obviously, I was going to say both on and off the pitch. Obviously, Ronaldo's achievements with Madrid have only been on the pitch at this point. I don't know if he'll ever come back as a coach. Who knows? He's a driven guy. I don't know. Actually, I don't. Do you see him as a coach? Well, there was that moment with Portugal, right, in the Euros, where he was when they became champion of the European champions of the Euro Cup, where he didn't play that final, and he was running up and down the sideline like a man possessed, and mimicking, actually doing similar gestures as the coach at that time. Do you remember? Remember those
giving instructions
images?
too.
Yeah.
Right. I don't see him as that kind of as a manager, to be honest, but I could be wrong. He doesn't strike me as someone who could lead a team the way, I don't know, somebody else could. But I also think Messi and Cruyff are closer to each other as a player than Ronaldo and Zidane are. Like, I think Cruyff, because look, before Messi and Ronaldo were even born or even came to the field, Cruyff was in the discussion among the greatest ever, or if not top 5. And I don't, and I think Zidane is not really in that discussion. Like, I understand that there is a contingent of people who think he is. I don't think he is personally. So I think Cruyff and Messi are closer to each other than Ronaldo and Zidane are. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So when you bring Zidane into the discussion, it has to be as a figure. It's the whole package. It's the manager. It's the legacy. It's
exactly,
he was here for a sporting director position before he became a coach. He was Ancelotti's assistant. Then he came as a coach, won 3 Champions League titles and all that. And as a player, obviously, he was an unbelievable player too. So that all factors in. But I still think Ronaldo is the bigger legend.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think our Real Madrid fans will like Zidane more than they'll like Ronaldo. That makes sense.
And I get that.
Yeah.
Like, they respect him more, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a subjective thing, and it's usually the socios. Those are the ones I'm referring to. Sebastian Hultuana says, Churros! Some months ago, I asked about the possibility of Barca going broke and what will happen. I see they have about 700 to 800 million short-term debt. What happens with that financial situation now that Laporta is president? I don't see Barca becoming privately owned, but I can see something similar with what Bayern has, like the fans owning 75% of the club and the rest belongs to Allianz. Do you guys think that Barca will have to sell stadium naming rights and align themselves with a huge investor to stay afloat? Looking at the Bayern model, it seems a pretty healthy option. I wouldn't mind even if Real Madrid has the same kind of deal in order to be able to compete with the likes of Manchester City and PSG in terms of transfer potency. Also, if Diego knows something about this, save this question for the patron-only show. Wink, wink.
No, I mean, I know nothing officially, and even if I did, yeah, you're right. I would not be saying anything or leaking anything. That is for the Friday podcast. But I don't know. I mean, look, right now there's only speculation, right? The refinancing of the debt, Kiyan, the stadium naming rights is certainly a hot topic, as well as the talks of a new sponsor. Then there's the reshuffling of the other assets that the club has, of which, Barca Studios is one. There's Barca Corporate. There's the marketing and licensing, and there's the innovation hub, etc. There's several branches out there that are, let's say, up for sale or for partnership purposes that might be looking for a partner. So look, I'm not concerned about the financial situation. I just have faith that slowly but surely we will see, improvements. I have to say it was a great relief for me to hear the words of not just Tusquets but also a who was it was it a lawyer or somebody that worked for the, I think it was the federation, or might have even been the refereeing federation, somebody high in the finance department there, talking about how they're not concerned about Barca's financial situation and the debt and the refinancing of it. Basically, that there are solutions that are on the table that are currently being evaluated and being taken into account. And Tebas as well had spoken about this. So again, with my with the lack of information, transparency, and know-how of how this situation is or will be turned around, I have to take for the information for what it's worth, and the people that are more in the know-how and better know how these situations are handled, I have to take their word for it, and believe that that Barca will climb out on top again, and be financially responsible, be fiscally in a better situation. So, yeah, there's that.
I have nothing to add at this point. A couple more interesting questions. C says, would you sign Ramos for Barca? This is, by the way, in response to, remember you and I were talking about if Real Madrid fans would sign Messi. And and I was skeptical that they would. And a few people answered. Actually, most of them said, no, we wouldn't. It's going to be subjective. But in response to that, C says, I will answer that with another question. Would you sign Ramos for Barca? The best Spanish defender and top 3 in the world right now. Some things are just not meant to be. It's directed at you, Diego. Would you sign Ramos at Barca?
Right now?
Sure.
No.
Okay. 3 years ago?
Sevilla Ramos. 3 years ago? Yes.
Okay. Kind of following along this line now. Ruth Widgeretti says, my question to both of you, who is your most appreciated player from the rival team? Where you acknowledge their characteristics. Diego, what place do you have for Sergio Ramos in your heart? P.S. It would be unfair for me to ask your opinion without putting my opinion first. The player that I have appreciated the most on my rival team was Luis Suarez, and wanted him donning the white jersey when I followed him in Liverpool in that 2013-2014 season.
Okay.
So where does Ramos have place in your heart? And also, who do you, what was it, the wording? Appreciate, players you appreciate from the rival team.
So Ramos's place in my heart is pretty much non-existent. I don't know. It's a bit of a funny question. What do I like? Nowhere, in no scenario did I ever get warm in my heart because of Ramos. I mean, I guess maybe with Spain, with the national side, it was kind of one of, it's good to have him on your corner sort of thing. But also, I mean, this kind of links with the previous question about signing Ramos. Never did I really stop and kind of, I guess clench my fist and go, oh, I really wish I had the guy on my team. Damn. Like, I mean, I never had that with Sergio Ramos. I've had it with other, Madrid players. It's not because of that, but not with Ramos in particular. So I guess, would I sign him even 3 years ago? I guess my answer should have been, well, at what price and what conditions? But in any case, Benzema right now, players that I appreciate from Madrid, Benzema without a doubt. Valverde, I really liked my Valverde last season. Obviously, the beginning of the season, that first half was I mean, a breakout season for him, and I was thinking, oh boy, here we go. They got somebody for the long term that is gonna be very, very good for them and give them good production. That's somewhat faded, I have to say. But there's no knock on Valverde. I still have faith in him. Reguilon, I didn't understand for the life of me why Zizou chose to not have him included in the team. I rate him very much. Odegaard, that is a player that actually I get proper sort of, I don't know about jealous, but yeah, I'm sour that Barca didn't manage to snatch him up when he was ripe for the plucking, when he was ripe for the taking there, when he was doing his tour around Europe and flirting with the teams, and Madrid got him, and that was a moment where I was like, damn. I guess same with Rodrigo for that matter. Rodrigo over Vinicius. At the time, I rated, and I still do, Rodrigo very much.
Odegaard at Barca would be an interesting and scary thought, I think. I think he fits that team. I mean, players I appreciate from Barca, I appreciate good footballers. So in a weird way, I appreciate all of them. Like there's no one on Barca I wouldn't quote unquote appreciate from a footballing perspective. They're all great players. I would say in terms of like, if we're talking about like a theme of signing players for your team, I always thought that Busquets is a player that Real Madrid needed for a long time. Maybe not so much anymore because Busquets is older, but if we're talking about like if we had Busquets, let's say in the 2014-2015 season under Carlo Ancelotti, like after Xabi Alonso left, I think we could possibly win 4 Champions League titles in a row instead of 3. Because we already won 1, then we missed out the second one because we lost to Juve in the semifinal. And that was literally because we didn't have a defensive midfielder. Kroos was burnt out. Modric got injured. And if Busquets was in that team, it would have been perfect for the way Carlo Ancelotti played. So I think that's a player that Real Madrid could have used for quite some time, to be honest. But, I mean, I appreciate them all. Luis Suarez, a lot of these players, exactly, like I don't like love, but Luis Suarez is incredible, and I don't, so. Can I ask you a question before I forget, and maybe we can wrap with this, Diego? Just Luis Suarez reminded me. With Sergio Aguero leaving Manchester City at the end of the season, would you take him at Barca?
No.
Too old, or?
Yeah, it's kind of like we got rid of Luis Suarez, and to get Aguero. I mean, Aguero hasn't played in quite a while. He's been very injury prone.
Yeah.
I don't know what the meaning of it would be, and I guess my fear would be, if he would arrive, would he play ahead of the younger players that need to get more minutes in, and because of his name and because of his friendship potential with Messi, would he therefore make the team sheet and get and take away valuable minutes of the younger ones, the Ansus, the Dembélés, the etc. So
yeah,
I don't need I don't want to go down that route, and especially knowing that Depay is most likely coming as well. So I'm like, we don't need 2 oldies. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I think that's probably the correct take. I don't think that you guys should go and sign Aguero. And Aguero is I think in a lot of ways, if Messi and Ronaldo weren't around, like they didn't exist, for example, we'd be talking about Aguero in a much higher light as like one of the greats. Yeah. But I mean, he's just right there in tier 2, but he's just not that anymore. Yeah. And so I think it would be a step backwards in the sense. I think you just have to look ahead, groom your talent from within. Yeah. And Aguero's 32. It's not that old, but he's still on the wrong side of 30. And like you said, I'm not exactly sure what version of him exists right now because of his injuries and stuff. So
yeah, precisely.
I don't know where he goes though, but it would be interesting. Let's wrap it here.
MLS.
Maybe.
Okay.
So what's happening Friday? Will we be back Friday?
We'll be back Friday. We still have a bunch of unanswered questions, which are good as well, so we can take those then. Mm-hmm. And we can put out another call for questions and do this all over again on Good Friday.
Oh, that's right, Good Friday. So patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas. If you want access to that Friday show, you can also go and submit questions and get responses. And then... if you, I guess La Liga will be back this weekend, right? So next week we'll probably talk about the results and stuff, and then I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, so just Friday, one step at a time. Friday, join us over on patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas, and we'll see you there. Diego, it was a pleasure. Thank you, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your
Friday,
Tuesday.
homie.
And we'll talk soon. Take care.
Thank you. Likewise.